Okay, so I guess I'm going to get started. So thanks for attending my session. My name is Walter Legowski, even though that's not my real name, but that's how I publish myself on the internet. So that's how I even got here. But if you call me Walter outside, I might not turn around. So just tap my shoulder if you want to talk to me. Session today. Is this very loud? Am I speaking too loud? No, you're good? Okay. So session today is Invoke-CypherDog, and we're going to be talking Bloodhound and PowerShell, and see how PowerShell can assist you in manipulating Bloodhound data. Sorry. So the plan for the session is quite simple. I like to make simple plans so we all know where we're going. We're going to start by looking at Bloodhound, and I'll give a little recap. Just show of hand here, how many of you know Bloodhound? Quite cool. How many of you use it on a regular basis? Okay, cool. Let's say in the first, I'll try to get everybody up to speed, at least to the concept, the vocabulary we use, and then a bit later we'll dive into the PowerShell part that gathers us here. Who am I? So I guess I put myself as just a regular guy just like you. I should be sitting here, but I'm here. I hope next year you're on stage. Just love PowerShell, and sometimes I dream I'm a ninja cat. So that's me. If you want to know more about me, I'll tell you outside, but I guess it's not great. The goal from this talk and from the angle I chose on this is to share the passion for PowerShell, I guess, which groups is here, share some ideas, share the tool, and also a bit of the process of creating the tool, what problem I encountered, what joy it brings, and what tips and tricks you can maybe get out of the process. So let's get started with Bloodhound. I'll start with a simple quote, or famous quote. It got famous in the security industry, so defenders think in list, attackers think in graph. That's the title of a blog post by John Lambert, who is the head of Microsoft's threat intelligence. And in this post, he describes the different view an attacker can have on a network compared to a defender, where defenders think a list of assets they have to defend, whereas an attacker sees the link between those assets and how he can traverse and see a path from this. And the whole post is about getting the blue team to also think in graph, and maybe we'll see how far it goes with Bloodhound, but manipulate this graph to kind of adjust your Active Directory environment. Recommended reading, I'm not going to go further into, but the blog post gives a good way to get into this whole Bloodhound concept. So what is Bloodhound? It's basically an Active Directory object and relationship graphing tools. For Red Team, originally it was designed, I guess, for offensive purposes, but lately, and with the latest post from the SpectreUp guys, they're also showing a way for the blue team to use all this, and I'll touch into this in the second part of the presentation. So credits goes to all the SpectreUp guys, so Captain Jesus, Waldo, and Harmjoy. Harmjoy being here in the room. Two other ones are not here, but they're also big members of this SpectreUp family. So credit goes to them. I just use the tool and put a layer of PowerShell on top to play with it the way I like. Now, where does Bloodhound find its place in the attacker kill chain? So once you've been exploited, it's a reconnaissance tool for the attacker to kind of map your network, see where he got, what am I looking at, and just Bloodhound is made for that. And then will be the whole rest of the kill chain, probably use other tools. Bloodhound is not made to attack necessarily, but just to gather situational awareness. It's made of, the main components of Bloodhound, you will start by ingesting or launching the Sharphound from a workstation in the domain to gather all this data, query the domain controller, query shares, gather all this information. I'll touch a bit on the collection later, but there are, of course, very different ways to collect data. And if you have any question, there's an expert here who can talk for hours about PowerView. So. Once you get this data, we're going to push it into a Neo4j database. So that's a relationship database, a bit like Bob likes Alice. So you can have Bob and Alice and and you can map stuff like this. The web UI is JavaScript and packed in a single Electron web app. So it's very easy to install, very portable. And we're going to also talk about Cypher, which is the language to query the Neo4j database, and which is what I try to abstract and to completely eliminate when using PowerShell, but it's what I'm running under the hood behind my PowerShell commands. Just a quick note, Bloodhound runs on Windows, Linux, and OS X, so any of you can just install it. If you're curious, there's a PowerShell script to install it fully automatically, so you can do that. Sorry. So terminology, when we talk about Bloodhound, we're going to start talking. You will hear me say node very often, and a node is simply an Active Directory object. Originally, it used to be user, computer groups, and domains. And like 2 weeks ago, while I was just finished with this tool, came out the Bloodhound 1.5, which adds 2 new type of objects, so GPU and OUs. So my tool is already obsolete. That's part of the pain, but it's also part of the joy, meaning I get to go back, write some more code and some more features. So it's a constant catching up with the guys, and they're really writing a lot of code very fast. You will hear me talk about edges, and this is the relationship between 2 nodes. So here in this example, a user is a member of a group. That's the edge between those 2 nodes. Bloodhound came with the original node, so member of admin2 has session and trusted by. That's the original, the most simple relationship you can think of in Active Directory. Then they came out with the ACL update, which adds a whole lot of new attack paths by manipulating these control lists. So again, more options. And on the latest, since they added GPOs and OU, we also get new edges, GP-link, contain, and owns. So the project is getting bigger, and there's more stuff to look into. I'm going to talk about path, and that simply is a sequence of nodes connected by edges give you a path. So that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like in the UI. I'm going to show you quickly, but not too much. Oh, that's my sad Joey meme. I wanted it in there, but it has nothing to do, but I wanted it, so I just put it in there. Done. Let's do the demo. Thanks for him. So just a quick tour of the UI. I'm going to show you that also for simple, like I like to automate mostly everything I can, so also starting Bloodhound is easier that way. Poof, the logging is done, so that's quite cool. And if you use my script to install it, it creates those commandlets for you. So it's all win-win. And that's what Bloodhound looks like. So here I'm using the default database that is supplied with the tool itself for testing. So even if you don't have Active Directory at hand, you could install Bloodhound and start having a look if you want. After the session, we can maybe, if some people are interested, play. Oh no, we're going to the zoo. At another moment, we can do that. And then you can, it's really, I really like it. So you can zoom into your graph, you can start looking. This is just showing who's a domain admin. You can add labels to see the name. If you click on a node, you will see all the node information appear. And here is populated already with some data. So for example, dedicated. So for this user that I select, if I click here now, I will see all the computers that he can admin. So that's probably interesting. We can have a look at derivative admin rights. So this is admin rights inherited also by using, and I'm gonna, so you can do this. Have a look here, change the layout to have it more in a directional way. Take this back out. So who has already seen his Active Directory in such a beauty? I mean, for those who have used Bloodhound, but I think for me, when I saw this, it was like, yeah, this has to be done. And so, well, the concept, I think the idea came from John Lambert's post and a bit of beer or something around the table, if I understood correctly, but the result is quite stunning. And I think it's an eye-opener even for regular admins, maybe, to have a look at what they have. Maybe they inherited their architecture. Just run Bloodhound, have a look at what you're looking at. And that's already probably speaks more than the whole snap-in you can have or anything that is very hard to read. So I'm not going to go too much into the UI itself. What I want to show is more how PowerShell can be used. Oh, wait, let me just do this. I need to say this though. So all the queries you see here when I click on those 264, for example, behind this he's running a Cypher query. Those Cypher queries are built in and you don't see them, but if you start to want to do more than what is just offered here, you will have to start to learn a bit of Cypher. You can put your queries here and get the results, or you can have a look at some built-in queries here, and you can add your own here, so you can add your own custom queries for stuff you would query often. But this is just to show you here in the UI where you can use Cypher. I'm not going to do it in the UI. And before I can show you some Cypher, I'm just going to do a mini Cypher 101 or something. So Cypher is just Neo4j database query language. This is not real Cypher, but it's just to give you the idea of how that works. So you're going to have a start node, a relationship, and an edge. And what you see, though, the brackets, the angled brackets, the little arrow, that's real Neo4j syntax. So it's a very visual syntax on how you write your queries. And with this type, we have the source node, the relationship, so the edge, the target node. And if we have a data, let's say Bob knows Alice, then you can imagine the question would come, so who knows Alice? We can ask, who does Bob know? We can ask, what is the edge between Bob and Alice? So that already, from a simple data set, Bob knows Alice, you can query it in many ways. Now, of course, we have more data. I'm taking two now, but to show a path. So I can ask, and this starts to look like real syntax, but you can ask for a path from Bob to John with anything in the middle. And he would reply, Bob knows Alice, Alice knows John. So that's, in a nutshell, Neo4j. Now this is real code. I try to put a bit of color so you can maybe break it down into something readable. So match is just a way of saying get this data and keep it with you. So I want this user called Ashavarin, I want this group called domain, and I want you to find the shortest path from A to B with any edges. Yeah? Does that make sense? You can say no. Does it? Yes? Okay. Second example. So the UI is awesome to show path, but you can also query metrics. So you might want to get some numbers out. And this, the graph cannot show it to you directly. But you can make those type of queries. Show me the 5 users with the most enrolled admin 2 on a computer. That's what it looks like. Again, the colors here maybe help you. And then we're doing a bit of math behind, so you can do that. And that would be top 10 users. So you see I'm only changing the edges and the limits. And my query suddenly becomes a different question. Yeah? Makes sense still so far? Any questions? No? Okay. So, what about PowerShell then? So that was a quick intro on Cypher. What about PowerShell? I got some memes, because I like memes. Notice the Bloodhound instead of the beer. So you can use PowerShell to query your... Yeah. They're homemade memes, so it's quality work for you guys. And a little demo. So the first tool I'm going to show is not yet CypherDog. It's just showing how you can throw some Cypher at the database and get your objects back in PowerShell. And then I'll show you CypherDog, which completely abstracts the need to know Cypher either. But I'll show you first with Cypher, and I still believe it's a good idea if you play with Bloodhound to learn a bit of Cypher. I know it's a PowerShell conference, but Cypher is cool also. So, I just wanted to say. Yes, demo. So I'm going to go to ISE. I'm not hyper cool using VS Code. It's just I'm used to ISE, so I go to ISE. When I work in the dark, I use VS Code. In the evenings with my hoodie and everything. Oh yeah, it's not handy. You guys see my mouse? Yeah. So we're gonna take, no, we're gonna take this, and this. So how do you want to do this? Should I run the commands? I want to make it a bit like I'm going to show the code I wrote. I know it's very bad to show your code in public, but I'm still going to do it. Please be kind. I'm just like you. I do the pipeline wrong. I probably do a lot of stuff wrong. I'm still having fun with it, and if you have feedback on how to improve my code, I'll be very happy. Let's start this one by looking at maybe the code. So I wrote some help because I knew I was coming, so I didn't want to show you a module without a command without help. You wouldn't have liked it. Yep, sure. I'll do it like so. Tell me when. Yeah? Some of the queries are a bit longer, so I might have to zoom out, but usually we should get there. So that's the commandlet, and in reality, how much code is there? I just want to show you the part where we invoke REST method. So that's the only thing happening, and the only way you really, well, it's not needed, that's just me doing funky stuff. But basically, you just throw your query in the body of invoke REST method. He will spit some JSON back. REST method will open up the JSON for you. So, I mean, if a tool has an API that spits JSON, PowerShell is just awesome to bring all that tool at a level where all your tools can then communicate with each other. And yeah, that's the only thing you know. The rest is just trying to make a commandlet out of it and to get tab completion. I'll show you how that looks. Can I stop sharing this? So, demo. Let's say this. So the first one here, I'm just going to query a simple node. Oh, did I not load this? Of course. Yep. So, there's nothing really impressive here except that we establish communication so that we know it works. I'm asking for the username Chavarin, and he's returning the user. In the sample database, the user only has a name property, so it's not that impressive. However, you're still returning an object here. So in a real scenario, your node will have more properties and you will have them. So this is just to show it works. I'm going to show you something funny here. Let's take this group, and I'm asking, so take this group, match any user member of that group, and return that user. Because this Cypher is quite, a simple Cypher is easy to understand. Then it gets a bit... So we can see here, I'm just saying the member of this group, so that's a direct member, and you can see I have 4 of them. Now I'm just going to change the query. I'm asking for a path with only member of edges. So if that's going back to the example, you're going to see here I'm like not member of that group, but I inherited from nested groups. So let's have a look here at the 3rd degree. Oops. That's the first, just to put it back. Oops. So degree 3, you see I have a few more users. Maybe the admin didn't know that. And let's have a look at 6, because it's the 6 degrees. Seems to be a classic stuff. I don't know in the US, so 6 degrees of bacon. Of Kevin Bacon, sorry. 6 degrees of bacon? That would be not bad. So the 6th degree, you see the group gets even longer, and just PowerShell to count because we're too lazy. So at a 6th degree in this query here, the 24 users compared to the 4 that were in the group. So this is a way of quickly, okay, I mean, if I ask you or your colleague asks you, can you get me a list of all the users who are member of the domain admin group to any degree, how would you do it now? Honest question, huh? Yeah, open up some kind of console, start taking a piece of paper, see who's in what group, add them up. There's probably a PowerShell way to do it, I'm only joking. But the Bloodhound way is really efficient, so awesome stuff. Now, if we make taking the ID further now that we're in PowerShell, we can automate stuff and do stuff at scale. Making a one-shot commandlet like this from the command line, maybe not, but having your queries that are relevant to your environment and running them on a regular automated basis to get your data back, that's also possible. So here I make a little script and I return a nicer object. So I'm taking this group and I'm asking him for each degree from 1 to 6, take the users of that group, sorry. Yeah? Foreign security principles. It's all in. It does everything, basically. So here what I want to show you is that with that same query, we're now doing stuff at scale. So I'm having all the users from degree 1, I have a list of user, degree 2, I have a list of user. And because it's PowerShell, we can make commandlets out of it. So I created this get 6 degrees of group membership commandlet, which is awesome to type. It has a small alias here. I'm just going to load it. Did I? Yes. And then we can do stuff like this. So for any group in all the groups we have, do it. I'm putting it in data, so it might take a. It's running in the background. Yeah. So the ingestion will depend, what you can ingest will depend on if you're an admin or not. However, a regular Lambda user on a domain join workstation can get you all this, and that's the way the system is made to work. There's no trick in there. Machines need to be able to query this to know where they stand in the domain, who's doing what, so you're abusing the system, you're not bypassing anything, you're just using the system and LDAP queries and all this to get there.
Yes. You can lock down objects or you can use the NetSees tool for Microsoft session and Windows 10 creator update to remote standard information.
Yeah, so my question is actually if somebody is using it against me, so to say, can I detect it and like pretend that it's not happening?
I believe depending on the switches used, if you use it out of the box normally, you will see so many connections. At some point something will light up and say, hey, what is your machine doing here? But if you use the stealth method, then it's more complicated. Yeah. But we'll see exactly that. This is why I think this tool is also great for blue team. If you know what the red team sees, if you know what paths they see, then you can start working on those paths and putting a tripwire. That's, hey, if he uses this path, I'm going to know because I have some kind of mechanism there. But if you're not aware of the path, you're not going to put anything on the path. So I would recommend blue teamers or regular admins just to run Bloodhound, have a look, see what it does, and see if, hey, I didn't know I had so many users in my admin group. Well, that's something to start working on. So benefit for everybody. In the meanwhile, very good, the data arrived. And you can see that I have, for all the groups in my domain, I've just did the same that I did the commandlet before. Let's just choose one. So I have them, and let's expand the groups. And I have all this, and let's only the one for the 4th degree, give me only the member list. So really, once you get access to the database in a way, you can go get your objects, and then, I mean, this is just a way to get them on the table, then you guys probably know what you want to do with it or not. I'm not here to say what to do with this data, but just to show a way to query it and to bring it into PowerShell. Now, I was mentioning about the blue team side of things. So not too long ago, I think Waldo made, so I shouldn't say Waldo, sorry. What's his real name? Andy Robbins made a webinar explaining his new approach for adding some resilience in your Active Directory environments. And he gathers metrics of, okay, how many users in my domain, what are the percentage of users in my domain who have a path to domain admin? Of these users who have a path, what is the average distance or the average number of hops they would have to take to get to domain admin? It does the same thing with the computer, and you manage to kind of create an index or something that could start to give you a value on the strengths of your AD, knowing that the percentage of that should have access should be as low as possible, and the steps to get there should be as long as possible. So let's have a look at this. So you see here, that's a pure Cypher query. Oh yeah, cool stuff. I have a little add-on. I can run them from here. You just highlight the Cypher and you do poof, and he gives you the reply. Is that cool? No? Come on. I mean, nothing there, no. There's nothing great, but it's exactly for me what PowerShell is made for. It's not made to do the whole stuff great, but those tiny little painful tasks become so easy, then you can start to chain them and get results at scale. So here I was asking for the top 5 users with the most admin rights, so that's quite cool. Here I'm gonna ask for what was the top 10? We want 10. So top 10 users with most sessions, same thing. And you get the count of sessions as well. So that's a bit where you might have to first spend some time to get your queries straight. I think there's also a project of sharing queries and opening a kind of a query page on Wikipedia, on GitHub. But for now, you still have to look. Oh yeah, that's cool also. I like to do stuff with the AST. So let me see, are my lines still correct? Yeah. So I can do something like this. I'm going to do it from the command line. 125 to 132. What do I have this? Oops. So I have 2 left hands and they're dyslexic, so I'm very bad at typing. I still chose to write code for a living, so it's okay. It still works, but yeah, sometimes it's a bit complicated. So let me just take all this and show you. This is pointless, because why would you want to do it from the command line? But I just love it so much, I put it in all my tools. It's cool, no? I'm using the command line to say, get that text up there and shoot it at there and show me the results. It's the kind of fun you can have with all this. And yeah, I added also to switch, like Andy mentioned, but I was having trouble like debugging my queries. I said, just add the explain and profile in front of your query and you will get some cool stuff. Tell me what you think. So I added it. And I added it as a switch, of course, but when you do the switch, he adds it in front of your Cypher query. And you can get how he's breaking down. Let's do a format table. That's probably easier to see. How he's breaking down the query and the amount of rows he's getting, how he's filtering. So when you're dealing with big queries and a lot of rows of data, sometimes your query take long to execute. And maybe if you want to fine tune them, this is also a good way to kind of see where he's choking a bit and taking some time. So that was just Cypherizer is just a quick way. It's just an invoke REST method, basically, with your Cypher query in the body of the invoke REST method. Yeah. But of course, because this is a PowerShell conference, we all like to make it pure PowerShell. I'm coming back here. Whoops. And back here. Yeah. So CypherDog this time is a full set of commandlets, not just one to shoot your query, but to kind of, I wrote this as an exercise to kind of practice like dynamic parameters and playing with the syntax and alias, and I was trying to get to a point where you write it almost like plain English. It's not exactly yet, it looks a bit like Master Yoda speaking plain English, but it's a good start. It's a good start for it. So these are the commandlets I created. So I know immediately the guy is going on stage at PSConf.eu and he uses Bloodhound as a verb. Go ahead, shoot me. I can justify all this if we have time outside for you guys. I just find it that when you import a tool from outside, I ended up using invoke-bloodhound edges for all my commandlets. Makes them painful. And the cool trick is here, if you look your commandlets, get command verb bloodhound, you get them all. So it's quite cool. I know Jeffrey Snover wouldn't like it, but it's a hack. So you, sorry. So Bloodhound, you can skip it. They all have an alias, so your commandlets are actually node search, node create, node update, node. I'm still trying to follow the PowerShell without following it. So it's a bit of a halfway, it's a compromise. And that's just because we love internet culture, right? So the features, I try to put very short syntax, tab completion, dynamic parameter, and they can all be piped to each other. So at the end, you can make very complex queries by chaining them together. And of course, I want to return object. I think that's the, well, even though for you it's obvious, I see a lot of, and this is film, so there's a lot of hacker tools that output strings, and that frustrates me a lot, because they have, I think hackers have the best tools, but they output strings, and then in PowerShell, you're like with a blob of, so you have to go select string and stuff, and it's not my favorite stuff. Anyway, so let's go to CypherDog demo. Do you have any questions? So is it okay? Yeah. Yep. I would. Sorry. Yeah, so the question is, you say this is to work against Active Directory. Would it work against Azure Active Directory? Yes. There's no real, your Active Directory could be in the cloud, but the permissions, everything still applies to your machine, and we can still talk to the DC in the cloud. And so as long as you're in an AD, all this applies. Yeah? So, I'm going to close this one. And let's go to the CypherDog. So I also like hacker tools because they have great ICE art. So I made a known Bloodhound ICE art. This is unique also. You guys are really right. Yes. I like that. So the idea behind this, yeah, like I said, was to allow people who don't want to look at Cypher to just query all this. Yeah, this I can show you quickly, but if you want any info on Bloodhound, of course, I forgot to say it, but it's all on there's the GitHub, and they also talk somewhere, I believe, about the REST API if you want to build your own tool. So all the documentation for Bloodhound is on the GitHub. I just thought I'd mention it. It's probably not the right place to do it, but there you go. So, Very bad. Bloodhound is also an alias for the Bloodhound help commandlet, which is actually just a way to get all the commandlets. So my idea is that, okay, somebody new comes to the command line, he doesn't know what to do. He said, oh, you have Bloodhound in PowerShell now. So probably the first thing he's going to type is Bloodhound, enter, and then he will get this, so you're already there, and then you see your help pages, so you can go get more, and so on. But these are the commandlets. If I ask for node without saying anything, so I never want to get an error, or at least as less as possible. So even like any type should start to give you something. So here node user, if I'm not specifying a name, he's giving them all, which is quite cool. And I can do, of course, the same with computers. I'm going to try and share that properly. You can do groups, of course, so that it's a way to get the list of all the groups, basically. Right there. Now, I added a node search, so you can search by partial name. And you see it's regex, so you can use Matthias. You see my regex, how far I go with regex? Yeah! That guy is crazy. Yeah, start with an A. And of course, yeah, you can, so group admin is a nice one. You can immediately see all the admin groups in the environment. More interestingly, we can start to query edges or relationships. So here I'm asking, so you have to say edge to kind of tell PowerShell I'm looking for that type of relationship, but then my idea was admin to computer Zeus local return group. It's not too bad for syntax. And if we try it, so you see here that all those groups are admin to this computer. And then, if you remember when I showed you the query, there's a direction to the query. Because of course, if I ask it the other way, the answer is not the same. So here, you see audit is one of the group that admins does. And if I said, give me the computers, admin by group audit, you will find this in a different list. Is here, but you see all the computers admin by that group. I'll just quickly show you the difference in Cypher. So there's a Cypher switch at the end of any of your queries. We'll put the Cypher query on screen and in your clipboard, because you can then go back to Bloodhound and just paste it in the row box like this. While he's returning users here, I'm going to return a path. It's nicer in the graph. Whoops, sorry. But so just keep in mind, if you have complex stuff, put Cypher, see the Cypher, learn Cypher, and maybe at the end you don't need PowerShell anymore to do it. And the difference between the two queries is simply, if you look here, simply the arrow is not in the same place. And it gives you a complete different, because you're not asking the same question, basically. Now, the example I showed you earlier with a group membership, so here I'm asking all the members of the group contracting F internal local, return the users, please. And you see that they're here. And I can do the same little stuff for the degree of membership. So degree 3, I have 14 users. Any degree, I have 21. Show me that Cypher. It's right here. Paste it in Bloodhound. And they're here. So yeah, a user list in Bloodhound in the graph is not that impressive. But if you needed to act on this user list, then having it in PowerShell without needing to go here, extract it, get the list, you immediately get your object and you can start to manipulate it. And of course, so queries, you can imagine that what we return these users could be the input for the next query. And with the PowerShell pipeline, this becomes very easy. So let's break it down. I'm taking admin to computer NYX, return the groups. Now I'm doing admin to NYX, return the groups, and from those groups, give me the users to any degree. They're right here. And now I'm taking those users and I'm saying, and give me all the computers that have the session from any of the users that is admin by the, so you can start to ask complex questions. You even get lost in your own question. So here I'm listing all computers with a session from any user admin to the specified target computer, which is quite, no, you have a headache already? It's quite cool. You can ask complex questions and the list just appears like this. I find it quite awesome. Same thing here, so list all users admin to computer where specified target user has a session. I'm giving this as an input. I'm going to query this, poof. And we return here a dash list of users. Again, for now it's not that impressive because we're not using a real database. You can, of course, query path. I showed you here, I wrote the full command. You see with the verb, it looks awesome. So, I'm asking for a path from, so yeah, that's, because I wanted tab completion on the from and on the to, I kind of cheat and I have this switch in front, user to computer, and then there's dynamic parameters looking at the first switch, breaking it down to know what to, yeah, because I didn't show you this, of course. Oh. So if I do path, and we'll say user to group, I don't need the from, it would tab complete, but what I wanted to get is this, because typing the name of a user in a command is just like awful, and PowerShell has all in its belly to help you with this. So you get IntelliSense, you get tab completion on your usernames, which is quite cool. Because like I said, I have two left hands. And all over, so every time you type something, kind of a pop-up, but I really like it. So, is there a path from A Brooks to domain admin? Yes. That's what a path would look like. So of course, a path is less sexy in the console because you don't have the graphical vision of it. However, it's an object that you could start automating on. And that's what keeps me awake at night. I'm trying to automate everything. Difference here, so I could specify with or without ACL. So here I'm not saying no ACL, so you see one of my edges is actually part of the ACL edges, but I can use the same query with the no ACL switch. You see my path becomes a bit longer because I'm not using this shortcut of using an ACL attack, but I still get a path that's a bit workable. And we can have a look, of course, in the UI to see that this is punk. Make it look nice. So that's the same path. Here is what you see here. But here it's broken down, basically. And because we're in PowerShell, we can do stuff that we cannot do in the graphical user interface. Well, I'm trying to find a way to do it, but it's complicated with the custom queries. But here in PowerShell, you can ask a path via a node, which I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm not doing offensive operation. I just like offensive tools. But I'm thinking it could be useful to, I don't know if I want to go somewhere I want to go via the bakery or something. So here I'm asking for a path. This one is a bit long, but I'm going from user to group via user. And then I'm saying from HAVALN to domain admin via this user. And you see I get a path of 15 steps that contains the user I wanted to go via. Well, I hate that. Don't you hate that? That when you try to select, to highlight something, you have to do it twice? Or is it only me? I hate it. I love all the rest. Jeffrey, I love all the rest. And here I'm asking for the same path without ACL, and you see now it's an 18-hop path. So depending on what you query, the difference in Cypher here is just, or maybe let's see that.
If you want to execute the whole line, I think you can just place the cursor on the line and hit the base.
Yeah, but I want to add a little switch at the end. And I'm going to do, so there's this awesome stuff. I don't know where it is on this keyboard. It's called end. And I go to the end of the line. I'm going to, yeah, this is advanced stuff, I know. But like I said, typing is a challenge for me, just like being on stage. And this is exactly why I chose to do it. Can I do Cypher in this? Or maybe there's no Cypher in the path via. Oh yeah, because I'm cheating. I'm gluing two paths together, so it's not a single query. Okay, forget it. There's no Cypher in the path via. I added it last moment, the path via commandlet. Is there anything so far you want to ask? You want to see in the code how it's done? How? Yeah.
So you pipe together different commands to get to a specific result, and you cycle that at the end of the pipe.
I didn't get the. When we do this? No, those are really separate queries. And if I do it with the verbose switch in all of them, you're going to see all the, because I try to also put my verbose correctly so that you will see the query and the everything. Let's do this everywhere. Oops. Yeah, he's running a lot of queries, I guess, for this. But the challenge, I'm trying to do everything in one query, but the Cypher gets quite complex. So you're going to see him here. He did, there's quite a few back and forth with the server to get all the info. So it's not really one that I could show you the Cypher itself. Yeah. This I did. Now the most interesting part, or at least for me, is that you can also manipulate the database. I'm going to go very fast. How am I doing with time? Oh, it's all good. So I'm going to show you how to add nodes, add edges to the database. And so node user Bob, because I have a validate set on the list of users, Bob is not a user yet, so I get this awful message with all my users in there. But this is just to show you that he doesn't exist yet. And now I'm going to create Bob. And that's the Cypher to create a user. Right here, merge user X, name them, and I'm passing it. So we're using params just to make sure we don't misquote something. Or so now if I ask for user Bob, he's right here. I'm going to add some properties. So that's the commandlet right here, node update, user Bob properties. And then you can look at Bob again, and he has some properties. I can set the CT to null. I just showed the difference here if any of you use this. So setting a value to null is this, and then Honolulu is not here anymore, whereas completely removing it is also possible with the switch delete. And then the property is gone completely. Yeah. You can do all in one go, so you can also create a user and on the fly add the properties in one go, one single query. So now we have Bob and Alice. You can search by property. You can search by property value. You can search by property doesn't exist. Yeah, this I wanted just to highlight that whatever happens before the pipe, if it's not a Cypher query, is sent to the server. He's case sensitive. So here the black with the capital B returns nothing, whereas with the small one it does. Whereas what we do behind, once we got the stuff and we're filtering on the PowerShell side, we all love it because it's good for the bad typists like me. We can do stuff like this. And it still will filter. So I'm asking who's got black hair, show me the one with blue eyes. Yeah? Yeah, you can say all the users that have an edge property, delete the property hair. And that's done. So now my users. So you can really do stuff at scale, and this is going to be interesting. For example, I'll show you some real use case for a real environment apart from Bob and Alice. So here I'm creating an edge. Bob likes Alice. Alice likes Bob. Life is wonderful. We have a path from Bob to Alice and a path from Alice to Bob. Yes. But bad things happen. And now Alice doesn't like Bob anymore, so we're removing the edge, and you see that we have a path from Bob to Alice, sadly not from Alice to Bob. So Get over it. It happens. I'll just show you the cipher again here. So we're matching name Bob, and we're finding the shortest path from A to B. Yeah? So if I want to delete a node, I can do that also. And of course, there's pipelines. So even better than deleting nodes one by one, I could ask for all the nodes and delete them all in one go. Poof, Bob and Alice are gone. Yes? Okay. No, the setting is in the Neo4j configuration itself. So this is when I install and I link this database in Neo4j. So Neo4j is using this one, and then I call Neo4j. And Neo4j is using this database. So there's no, in the command list, there's no way to specify a database. But this is in the Neo4j conf file. Yeah, I can show you after if you want. Yeah, cool. Let me see. I removed them, so now if I look for a property, he's not here anymore because I just deleted them. So now, real example usage, if you wanted to take all your computers, they're right here, and you want to add a property of blacklist to all the computers, they're not blacklisted yet. That is done, so now all my computers have a property of blacklist, so I'm really manipulating the database the way I like it now. I'm going to say all the, oh, another regex. All the ones that are a system in their name, they are blacklisted. That's done, and if I look at my list again, you see that this is the case, yeah? And then we can search by property, so give me all the blacklisted nodes. Be careful, this is case sensitive here because we're sending that to Neo4j, whereas I could say all the computer were blacklist equal true, and that would work here on the PowerShell side. If I wanted to remove that, I can do that very quickly. Node computer doesn't have that property anymore. If I want to say node user for each update, the name and the property, so here I'm creating on the fly a domain property from all users by looking at their name. I should have showed you before that it didn't have it, but now it does have an extra property here. This is a handy one to have when you make complex query. You want to filter by domain, so it's nice to add a domain property to all the nodes in one go, basically. Little stuff I added, but I'm not really sure how that works, but I'm still happy it's in here. So I have a query 1 here, I'm running it. I have a query 2 here, and then you can do stuff like Cypher union query 1, query 2. And the Cypher commandlets will not query it, it just gives you Cypher, but I can then go paste this in the UI. And you would see, woo, it's a flower. You would see here I have two paths actually that are joined. So the bottom one is actually a different graph and they're overlaid, they're union. We're uniting those two queries in one single graph. I know it's very useful, but since I could do it, I thought, hey, let's put it in. And so I mentioned that Waldo had a cool idea I find on testing your environment, and he even goes a bit further. He says, have a look at your environment, get some metrics out of it, and then simulate changes in the graph. You could like, okay, this is my database, I'm doing nothing if I change stuff in this database, right? It's a snapshot of your environment. So by manipulating the graph, by changing people on the graph and looking at it again, you might have a better idea. I think if we take it a step further, but that's probably for next year's presentation, I think you could deploy a whole Active Directory out of Bloodhound. You could even design your Active Directory in Bloodhound and press a button to have PowerShell, create the groups and put the users in. And maybe for next year. For now, I will go slowly with this. So here on the Waldo index, I called it because there's no name for it. It's a big query, but it's quite a big query, Cypher query here. But so here I gave him a group, the domain admin, and he says, okay, you have 186 users in the domain, 89 of them have a path to that group, so 47% of users have a path to that group, and the average distance is 4.5. So that Cypher query returns the whole data in one shot, which is quite handy. And then you can start to do stuff the PowerShell way. So I'm going to look for all the groups that have contracting in their name, and I am going to do the Waldo index on all those groups in one go. And you're going to see them start working. So this is painful stuff to do normally by hand or by... here you're reporting at the speed of light. If management asks you, okay, what percentage of users have access to DA? You can get that in a single commandlet. All right, the first one to get it. Woo. So I'm going to speed up a bit. Yeah. So here I'm running the same one, and then I'm killing the pipeline because I'm sorting everything. I know I killed the pipeline a few times in my commandlets because I like to have the name ordered by alphabetical order. So when you pipe your commandlets, he's actually waiting to have the whole group to order them to then pipe it again. It's not efficient. I didn't come here to give a talk on commandlet efficiency, and I usually get my tips and hints from people who know way more than me about this. But at the level of a user or a semi-hacker who wants to have fun, PowerShell is awesome. So maybe that's why I decided to come on stage even though I'm not an expert, is you can already do a lot of stuff the proper way. You will meet people and they will help you make your code more efficient. So that's why I actually came to this conference. Matthias, I want my code. Can you look at it? So, and that was it for the demo, I guess. Let me go back, see what we have. Oh, yeah. Do you have any questions? Notice the tie. He's not in the room. Ah, dommage. Any other questions? No? So what next? Oh, sorry. Very good. You're following. Good. So for me, it's just the beginning. So what next? This data is here. You have a huge database that collected your whole AD. We don't know yet the great stuff that are in there. I think Waldo made some interesting proposals on a way to at least get an index that would be relevant for everybody. But again, I think the queries that will help you in your environment are the ones you will come up with because you know your environment, you know what group are sensitive, you know everything. So. Download Bloodhound, play with it, use PowerShell to query via the REST API, find relevant metrics, and use PowerShell to pimp it out. So all those metrics that I have, I don't know if he's in the room, but you get the push dashboard, and you make a fantastic live dashboard from your Bloodhound database. Management can go online and see it's awesome, and they love you because you produce data, and you show metrics, and it's awesome. So PowerShell can help you do that. Me, while I'm going back to designing, because like they keep changing stuff every month, so every month you need to rethink how. But I'm quite happy. I think I will simplify, put less commandlets. And yeah, my little shiny object, let's say, is I'm trying to merge Empire into Bloodhound, so I'll just show you what that looks like. But actually, in the Bloodhound graph, you can import your Empire infrastructure as nodes. So here I have the root of all evil being you, Empire. You have two servers, which each represent a session. They've had their listeners, their agent, and the computers. No, I was almost there. If you ever want to read any cool stuff, sorry, I'm very fast. If you want all the stuff, I didn't put the links because slides with links makes it impossible to read, but if you Google all those keywords and the author, you will fall on the blog post, and they really, I think they put a great effort into explaining all this and sharing it, so have a look at all this, and that's it. I had some cool memes. Come on! So... And that was the summary.